Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. For those who are marking Labor Day, I hope you had a peaceful holiday and you're still having a peaceful holiday and you spend it the way you envision it, whether it's with loved ones, alone, whatever floats your boat. Okay, all is good, and I hope you're having a peaceful holiday. I know in US and Canada that's being celebrated, perhaps somewhere else. Let me know. Maybe I'm not aware of some locations. Let's say hi. Hi, Peter. Hello. Hi, Michael. Hello. Hi, James. Yes, good afternoon. Hi, Shirley. Hello. Trying to sneak a bit of information between clients. Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, Jared. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Hello. Well, we're going to talk about global news. The China summit, well, it's SCO summit, and I'm going to explain all about it. Who was there? What did they say? What are they doing? And why does it matter to us? And I'm not sure why I have this cross looking through. I'm like Caroline Levitt. Let me flip it back. No affiliation. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about other global news. We're going to talk about national news. And before that, of course, the biggest thing is, where is Trump? It's like, where's Waldo? And how is he doing? And he didn't wish anybody happy Labor Day. He tweets. Well, his account tweets constantly, nonstop. If you kind of are as familiar with his tweets as by now, I think the majority of us is, there are things that he pretty much never says, like President DJT. Like, he never signs off like that. But maybe something changed and he does. Altogether, what I want to say about that is that ultimately we don't have any reliable information. Period. End of story. Yes, I'm reading the pool reports. Yes, I'm receiving those pool reports. Yes, I've been in pools. But those were different times. And I want to begin with just, exploring this thought that people who were eager to report on what is going on were physically removed, and their access was physically removed, prohibiting them to even be there. Yours truly is one of those people. Starting January 20th, it was a thing that prohibited us to be there. So mainstream media is there. Today's pooler is pretty good. He's from Dave, is with Huffington Post. He's straightforward, but that's how we know that they don't have access to the president. Altogether, we have not seen him and we have not heard him, which is, I think, more important than seeing, because some pictures can be manipulated and guys are going down the rabbit hole, proving this, proving the other. I don't want to dive into this, but what we have not seen is him talking and being on camera, which is very natural to Trump, is what actually feeds him and his personality and feeds his base. So we haven't seen that since Tuesday, 12:35 p.m. So we have reports that on Wednesday he did call Governor Walz. Governor Walz confirmed that. But then it comes out that in that conversation, Besant was there, Rubio was there, and somehow they talked about the school shooting. So was Trump really talking on the phone or just being present? Who knows? But altogether, we haven't seen him. We haven't heard from him physically speaking since Tuesday. Now, there are different photos, and then they get debunked that, whatever. What I see from my humble perspective is that he constantly leaves, well, since Thursday up until today. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 days already. He leaves the White House at 8:30 in the morning, and he comes back around 2:30, 3 p.m. And at 3:30, they call the lid, which exactly what did happen today as well. And this was the latest. And so this is one photo that I can show you, which was just communicated by the pool. And again, Dave is with the Huffington Post, and he's like, look, if you're complaining that I don't have better pictures, we're not this close, and I don't have this much of a camera. I have an iPhone. And the pool is kept so far away from Trump. What happens during those days, 5 days for now? He's walking few steps into an SUV. He's traveling to allegedly his golf course in Virginia, but the pool itself travels to golf course in Virginia and is kept in a closed up tennis court or tennis facility. So they don't see Trump. They don't see him playing, interacting, doing anything. Then they again are transported inside the vans. Sometimes they see his SUV passing by, which happened today, and they snap the picture. Sometimes they don't see him at all. And so they arrive at the White House and they're told that he's home and this is the lid. So is it possible for him to be elsewhere? Yeah. Is it possible for him to stop in Virginia, hospital? Yes. So, but all of those, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but just to understand, the facts are that we haven't seen him and heard him speak, which is part of his persona and personality, since Tuesday, which is by now 1 week. Okay, so 7 days. We saw this picture just now. This is when the pooler Dave of Huffington Post snapped this. He was passing by an SUV from the golf course allegedly, but the pool again, they were seeing the golf course throughout the day. They haven't seen Trump there. They haven't seen, they saw just regular people golfing and having a good time. So when he was passing by, he waved, and that's the picture that they got. So this is something plus minus reliable. You can judge how he looks. I'm not a doctor. I have my opinion, but it's irrelevant in this case. What we need to know is, would Trump love to be in China and meeting with all the people he admires? Absolutely. Would he love to make statements and proclaim himself as the Labor president? Absolutely. Hasn't done it. Also, another thing that I would like to point out is that with the accident that did happen to former mayor Giuliani yesterday, this is what they put a statement out on August 30th. Again, there's so many just questions in all of this, but he was in a car accident. He was speeding, or the car that slammed into him from behind was speeding. Somehow they bring up that he was on the highway and he stopped to attend to a victim of domestic violence incident. And then when he was driving from that location, after waiting till this person receives help, he got into a car accident when somebody slammed from the back. Now, he was diagnosed with a fractured thoracic. So anyway, he had concussions, essentially, right? Multiple lacerations and contusions, and as well as injuries to his left arm and lower leg, right? If I mispronounce, my fault. I apologize, because all of that, I grew up in Germany, so all that is very German, so pronounce things German way sometimes. But I'm learning. Now, so this happened. Trump has been friends with Giuliani for 45 years. Naturally, you would expect him to at least tweet and say, thoughts, prayers, can't wait to hug you, and whatever, right? Anything. Thank you for attention to this matter. But we don't get anything on that up until very recently, about an hour ago, where he tweets this, which is kind of questionable, right? As president of the United States, I'm pleased to announce that Rudy Giuliani, the greatest mayor in history of New York City, an equally great American patriot, will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, our country's highest civilian honor. Details as to time and place to follow. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. The guy just got into an accident. He's old. He had concussions and whatever. We don't know in what state he is in. Now, all that is tweeted is about the Medal of Freedom, Presidential Medal of Freedom. Weird. As for me, weird. You decide for you. But we're not addressing what is current. Maybe we're getting into drafts that were saved before and just mention Giuliani and we just bring them up because we should say something about him. I don't know. We will see. Altogether, what I can say is time will tell. The holiday will be over today. Tomorrow, we will either hear or not hear from Trump. It would be hella weird if on September 2nd, yes, the day before the victims of Epstein and this whole horrible situation will speak, and allegedly there will be a video and whatnot released, so that he is nowhere to be found, or he is driven again to golf courses. That would be weird. Then there is a video of somebody throwing stuff out of the window, out of the White House. I did post it. I don't want to show it here. I don't know who made this video. Is it real? Is it not? As for me, I have never heard that White House would be able to open windows and throw something out. I was of the opinion that the windows are blocked. Confirmed by, Michelle Obama in her book. She openly spoke about it. Just the feeling. In fact, she begins her book, with just the feeling of just having fresh air coming from the window. That was so refreshing after they left the White House. Essentially, we'll see what will be up. September 3rd, will he speak? Will he not? I doubt he's gonna somehow end up in China at the military parade, and I'll guide you through who's gonna be there. Is he going to comment on the military parade or not? Time will tell. And in the next few days, this week specifically, we'll have to find out what is happening. And truth usually comes out. There is no way to hide it, especially given the technology, given the connectivity and how connected we are worldwide. Of course, you prohibit people from being there who can see and hear a lot of things, because as I know from my personal experience, when you're at the White House, this is not just a place of work. This is also where they live. Biden's did, at least, where you can hear and see things, and you go somewhere and you see somebody just walking the dog or talking to somebody. So you are in that environment where you can hear and see certain things. So is this pool relevant? One person is putting the pool together. What are the others doing and whatnot? So what Dave of Huffington Post deservingly so put out is that today pool was not featuring any MAGA influencers or MAGA or Fox News and whatnot, because it's a holiday and they just don't want to work on holidays, which I know also from my personal experience, they never wanted to do that. So tomorrow will be a different narrative. I would say expect a big wave of fake pictures, videos, how great he is and whatnot. Again, until we hear Trump in live stream from Oval Office in his best environment speaking, that's your biggest takeaway. Okay, we spent enough time on this, but I wanted to address it so you don't say like, hey, we never talk about it. Hi, Tony. Hello. That latest picture really doesn't even look like him in the profile. Yeah, something is, I can't pronounce it. Nasolabial folds miraculously healed. I hate that they're turning into QAnon. Yeah. Hey, Paul. Yeah. Cecilia, hello. If I never see him again, I'll be fine. Tidy Whitey, hello. Needs to show himself live. Exactly, right? To that point. Yes, can he refuse she? we'll talk about it. We'll talk about what's going on that side of the world. I don't think Trump is very much welcome there, because everything that is happening in China is very much directed against United States and the Western world. And why not? Let's dive into it. So the summit first happened, right? Putin traveled to China for 4 days. The first 2 days, August 30th and 31st, yes, 31st and 30. Anyway, the first 2 days, I think 30th and 31st, is the summit, the SCO summit. Why I'm confused on the dates is because China is ahead of us, so we get stuff while we are in the yesterday for them, right? So Putin traveled there. This is Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Just to understand the scope, it began about 26 years ago. Those were the founding members. You see here Russia and China and Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. So anything that has a stan in it, it was the founding member. Then they added the member states to it, right? Which you see here: India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Armenia. Is it Armenia? Oh, Belarus and Mongolia. And then they have also observer states, right? And there they added, folks like Turkey and Sri Lanka and Saudi Arabia and, UAE and whatnot. So all of them were added later, and this is where the money comes from. Now, what we do know is WEF is there, World Economic Fund. They are talking about change of currency and priorities when it comes to trade, and in what currencies the trade is made. It is in the interest of China and Russia to move away from dollar, because, well, Russia cannot really trade in dollar given the sanctions, and China is very afraid to trade with Russia given the sanctions that can be imposed on China if they do so. So in their interest is to build something else. Yes, the BRICS, right? Remember the BRICS summit, it's different from this, but they also, of course, given BRIC, right? They have Brazil there, for instance, which is not part of it here, but BRICS did think about their own currency. They presented, the pictures of it, but it never manifested itself into an actual currency as of now. So here they bring up this idea as well. So, but just to paint the picture, Putin arrived. Yes, they rolled the red carpet for him, but it was nowhere near the reception that others did receive. Like, for instance, Erdogan from Turkey and others, when they arrived, and India's Modi, who arrived on China's soil for the first time since 2018, they got dances and, the full honors and the band and the red carpet and bunch of officials welcoming them and showcasing it on live television and, during the night and day, and it was all of it, right? Now, when Putin did arrive, yeah, it was a red carpet, but there were no dances, no bands, no music. There were some envoys to China, Russian people, meeting him. There were some low-level Chinese officials meeting him, and then he went into the car that is his, and he drove off. So it was nowhere near this big sort of reception. And as I covered last week, Putin is there with the head in his hands, asking for finances, asking to essentially maintain his war against Ukraine and to expand it possibly. So he is there in the position of being that guy who is there to entertain others, keep them in a good mood, and physically ask, which is very much depicted in all the pictures that you see. He is joking. He's entertaining everybody. He's poking people and doing all this. There's a video of Modi and him on day 2 this morning, entering literally hand in hand. And then since I do speak Russian, I don't speak Indian or Chinese, but I was, or Hindu and Chinese, I was listening to it, and Putin says to Modi, "Oh, you're so fun. I can't keep up with you," right? There was the translations. And there was all this picturesque depiction of how lovey-dovey we are, right? So this is the video that I have the reference that I'm referencing. So take a look. Hee hee ha ha. But to check your comments, Cecilia says Gnome is probably throwing puppies off the roof. Could be. But the video from the White House poll says I had another comment which was removed. I'm not removing any comments, so maybe it's YouTube or something. My apologies about that. I said the incompetent loyalists and psychopaths need a bone toss to keep them engaged and incentivized, right? With the rooting, yeah. Paul also says it's also a core part of Project 2025. Yep. And Tony says dying, the hand holding and the giggling, right? And this was the first time I saw this, like, man of certain age, dictators, walking with, hand holding and everything. It's pathetic. But I think it's a visual display personally for Trump, because there's a military parade on September 3rd, and I'll tell you all about it towards the end today. And there will be Kim Jong-un, and we already know the seating chart. So will be Xi Jinping. On the right hand from him would be Putin, and on the left hand side is Kim Jong-un. And imagine all of them hugging and holding hands. This show, I think, is for one very particular audience. Now, before the summit began, Putin spoke to the Chinese media called Xinhua. At least that's how I see it to be pronounced. So Putin stressed the importance of strengthening BRICS as a key pillar of global architecture and called for reforms of international financial institutions. He criticized the use of financial tools as neo-colonialism and demanded a system based on true equity. Well, if it's based on true equity, then Russia has no place to be even seated under the table because their GDP is tanking. So what equity are you talking about, Hanban? He praised China's G20 role and welcomed the African Union's inclusion as aligning BRICS with other global alliances. So before we go more into Putin and Ukraine and all the shit show that he performed today there, let's talk about Modi real quick, because this is a very big development here, that Modi is not just speaking to Xi, which he did in Kazan earlier this year, but he's also traveling to China. They also have, in India, they have events where they laugh at America, they laugh at Trump, they call him separatist, and that, he very much hurt them. So what came out in the New York Times today, which was very old news for India, and people like reporters in India who were communicating with me a few weeks ago, where essentially Trump told Modi that, we can discuss the trade and produce some type of agreement or concept of agreement, as it always ends with this administration, with if Modi will confirm that Trump ended the war between India and Pakistan, and Modi personally will nominate him for Nobel Peace Prize. To which Modi said, "Are you insane? First of all, you have nothing to do with our war. You certainly don't understand the historical background on this, and you haven't ended anything. So why would I do this?" And Modi at that point was seated between two chairs, balancing between the Western world and EU and US. Remember him traveling to United States, right? As part of this IP4, and traveling to Biden's home, childhood home, and hugging him and all that, right? Just last year. But he's balancing between the Western world and between all the authoritarian regimes and the world of Kim Jong-un and Putin and Xi. So when Trump did this, This pushed Modi all the way away to even to the point where he issued statement that we will not be continuing any trade negotiations with the United States. He did confirm it yesterday, and he said there is no interest even in any diplomatic conversation. Of course, they're still interested in keeping workers from India to learn and work in the United States, the so-called H-1B program, which is heavily populated by Indian demographic. They then return, they open companies. So this, is profitable for India. But altogether, Modi displayed a whole, a very, for him, very unusual behavior where he completely devoted himself to this part of the world rather than performing this balancing act that he's known for. Now, will Erdogan do the same thing? We will see it during the military parade, if we will see any footage and pictures of it, because Erdogan is also known for, of course, being part of NATO, of course, trying to become part of European Union, and it clashes, right, because of human rights abuses and whatnot, and just like the rules within Turkey. But he's part of NATO, and he's very much needed by NATO, given the geographical location on the Black Sea, but also the strength of the Turkish army. So will he be performing this act? Will he be siding with, China? So we'll see what will come out of that, because this is still ongoing. Now, Indian Prime Minister Modi was mad with all the dances. Dances called Kathak and Odissi dance performances, and Chinese ambassador said that he was confident that this visit will inject new momentum into China-India relations. And so then Modi met with Xi Jinping, and here's do I have a photo? Yes, I do have a photo, shaking hands and everything. After that, Modi tweeted, "We reviewed the positive momentum in India-China relations since our last meeting in Kazan. We agreed on the importance of maintaining peace and tranquility in border areas and reaffirmed our commitment to cooperation based on mutual respect, mutual interest, and mutual sensitivity." And just to paint the picture, this is Modi hugging everybody. This is Pashinyan, of course, the leader of Iran. He's hugging what? Who's next here? Kyrgyzstan's leader. What else? President of Turkmenistan. Then we have here the president of Laos, right? Then we have the president of Uzbekistan, and the president of Kazakhstan, and the president of Vietnam, and Lukashenko, president of Belarus, and here you have the Egyptian leader, and here's, of course, with Putin, and he adds the comment, "Always a delight to meet President Putin," and then he's riding in the car with him. After the proceedings in the SEO summit venue, President Putin and I traveled together to the venue of our bilateral meeting. Conversations with him are always insightful. Meanwhile, Putin kills children. He kills civilians in Ukraine, and he's there to ask really for a handout to continue doing so. So I let you build your own opinion on all that, but that's where Modi stands. And of course, the visual. So here's a video of their so-called family photo. So you see just the scope of countries attending. Take a look. And this was the first greeting with Putin and Xi. Take a look. And the hee hee ha ha continues. Now, as to Xi Jinping, he was addressing Modi. Here's his statement when they began the meeting between India and China.
The world today is swept by one-centric transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East. We are the world's two most populous countries, and we are also important members of the global South. We both shoulder the historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and propelling the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success.
So Modi is nodding and everybody is lovey-dovey. And to your point, yes, I haven't seen the holding hands stuff. I saw the video, but them holding hands in tidy way. Thank you so much for your support. And guys, thank you for following me on Blue Sky. So if you're not into Twitter and X, please connect. I post there so much, like literally 24/7, 365. On X, I'm careful because I get so many bots replying to me and I'm over it. The world versus USA. Yes, and the question is, where will Europe stand? That will be next. Will Europe really need China, or will they go against? So let's dive into that in a second. So, what else? Now, Kremlin did a good job, in their view, lying about what happened with Ukraine. Again, to understand, they need the money for it. For China, of course, China understands what Putin is doing. And China is using this useful tool called Putin, who is okay killing his own people, who's okay killing his own economy, who's okay just doing the stupidest thing as to invading tiny country compared to Russia. Ukraine is by far not tiny, but compared to Russia, tiny country, spending 3 years, millions of people to get to nowhere, essentially, right? To getting what, like 3% or whatever of the country. But he's very useful because he's banana, and he's useful for China because for China, China is winning. They have the useful tool at the White House, who is literally killing his own position, geopolitically speaking, right? Fighting within the country, occupying states, trying to impose martial law, killing his relations with other nations, just starting a trade war out of blue, and just harassing people within the country, stealing money out of the budget, killing vaccines, killing all this, Medicare, Medicaid, and all that. So he's busy with doing his doing. Great for China. Fantastic. Now for Europe, that's what Putin is doing. He's invading Ukraine. He is destabilizing Europe that is very reliant gas-wise and oil-wise on Russia. And so they are pivoting, but they can't stop purchasing from Russia. Remember this talk 3 years ago, Germany will freeze if there will be sanctions on Russia. So it all came down to this, where Germany is speaking very straightforward. Like, we are almost at war with Russia. And I have quotes from Chancellor Merz coming up in a second. So Europe is slowly getting there, but Europe is now chasing, something that's supposed to have been done decades ago, as to bringing up production to the level where, they can have their own arms and they can defend themselves at some point. So they're trying to give Ukraine money, but they don't have it. But they need to unfreeze this frozen assets or the profits of Russian assets. They can do it because they have rules and regulations. All cost time. Great for China altogether. Fantastic. U.S. is nowhere near to where it was post World War II. Nowhere near where it was the 80 years after World War II. The spot is empty. So China is taking the lead of the country guaranteeing peace. And this is essentially what Xi Jinping is talking about for 2 days now. We will be guaranteeing peace. There will be equality. I'm going to have the quotes for you. None of it is true. This will be, how Xi Jinping said that, the elephant and dragon have to unite when he was talking to Modi, referring to India and China, metaphorically speaking, of course. But yeah, they will unite under the rule of the dragon. It's nowhere near going to be very close and, lovey-dovey as they portray here. So If China rules, China will see it their way. They have to be on top. This is not going to be America, the biggest democracy and the land of the free, guaranteeing that everybody is peaceful and we all make money and we're all prosperous. Living under China's dictatorship and position as the top nation in the world will be very different than it has been for the past 80 years. And this is a big doing. I believe, in my opinion, it started 10 years ago when under Obama's administration, Crimea was annexed and U.S. did not realize what the hell is happening and what started going on. Then Biden did a good balancing act as to bringing up Europe, giving them enough time to wake up while not provoking Russia, but still it was not enough offense in that regard and help for Ukraine. Ukraine was kept alive in the fight so far that they haven't lost, but there was not enough support. And now with Trump, this is the useful guy for all these people. He just, take it, whatever you want to do. As far as as long as I can hold on to my Gilded Age Hobby Lobby decorations and I can play a dictator within my own party and my MAGA world, I'm cool with that. Just give me $1 billion of whatever, some cryptocurrency, and I'm cool. So this is started somewhere, but here's the finale of this type of shit show. So Kremlin messaging on Ukraine. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov, right? Kremlin spokesperson, said that we are ready to resolve the problem by political and diplomatic means. But since we do not see reciprocity from Kiev, we continue the special military operation. He then added, the efforts of President Putin and also US President Trump to steer the process into a peaceful direction are hard to overestimate. We are grateful for those efforts. Of course, Russia is grateful for those efforts, especially the lack of any action, sanctions, tariff, nothing. Of course, they're very satisfied. Of course, they're praising Trump because he's allowing them to do anything. They up their bombings, they kill more civilians now on the daily and specifically nightly basis in Ukraine. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. If anything, red carpet is rolled out and Putin is performing on the world stage and then deciding that no questions will be answered and leaves Alaska abruptly. While the Russian media produced, by the way, a whole documentary about what? Russian Orthodox churches in Alaska and how many people in Alaska have Russian last names. They interviewed people in Alaska. That's what they were also doing in Alaska. That's why those goddamn reporters who were complaining that they slept in like a sports arena the night before the meeting, that's why they came the night before the meeting, because all of them were recording this stupid reality shows that are now, shown to the Russian demographic. Again, planting the seed for Alaska. What are they doing in Ukraine? They are protecting Russian-speaking people, ethnic Russians. Apparently, I'm one of those. But they bomb my everything. So, how far are we from the rhetoric that they're going to protect ethnic Russians in Alaska since the documentaries? I'll let you think about it. Now, Putin himself said that the Ukrainian crisis did not arise as a result of Russia's attack on Ukraine, but as a result of a coup in Ukraine that was supported and provoked by the West. And think about it. Who also talks about exactly that in some tweets? This is not my war. This is Biden's war. Biden. That coming from Trump sounds different, but comes back to the same bullshit. That Biden administration, by helping Ukraine essentially and ensuring they don't surrender, by not giving them by far enough, but still, Biden did help right away and get the international community to help and united and expanded NATO. Finland, Sweden would have never happened. Biden played a huge role there. First, Putin played a huge role because it scared the shit out of him. But Biden did the diplomatic work there. And now he's at fault. Trump blames him. Putin blames him too. Same story. Now, Xi Jinping delivered this whole speech today. And this is how they all were seated, just to you to visualize. A big dear leader speech. And so at the summit, he began today by stressing that SCO and its mission to ignite momentum for cooperation and draw up a blueprint for development. He called for supporting an orderly, multipolar world with a fairer and more rational system of global governance, directly challenging the US led order. Essentially, he said, we need to go back, literally, to the end of World War II, and we need to realize what kind of mistake we all did as the international community by allowing United States to guarantee peace. Meanwhile, those are the goblins that are overcharging everybody. Look at the tariffs. We allowed them to build their military bases everywhere. And what did you get? They invaded you, or charge you now, and they pay you up with tariffs. They don't appreciate anything. They're not a good partner. So let's go back to World War II situation, who aligned where, and let's allow us, China, to be the country guaranteeing peace. Perfect moment for Xi Jinping. You can't judge him for doing this. Excellent moment. Excellent. Played the cards, whatever he had, perfectly. Used both useful idiots everywhere to destabilize Europe, to mess up US prosperity from within. With no shots fired. We elected this. And all we care about is the guy alive? Is he not alive? Meanwhile, Vance is coming up next, and this is Peter Thiel for you. So, remember I was telling you that they hate America, but they copy the shit out of it. And they did the same thing. So the first lady, China's first lady, her name is Peng Lian, hosted cultural cruise on Tianjin Haihe River for spouses of visiting leaders, while Belarusian leader Lukashenko declared that China and SCO would resist Western distortions of historical truth. And so he came up on this with this rebel that US was given too big of a role. US was not prepared to play the peacemaker. There's no history, this lack of knowledge and understanding. So we need to redraw this. Let's go back and just act with that. This is what this summit was about. Now, meanwhile, Russia's CSTO allies, well, this is Belarus and Russia, have started joint drills in Belarus, including nuclear planning scenarios. More than 2,000 troops, 450 units of equipment, 9 aircraft, and over 70 drones are taking part. Now, the big party pooper in this regard was Ursula von der Leyen, the president of European Commission, who traveled to Poland, to the border with Belarus, and together with the Polish Prime Minister Tusk, she held, day before yesterday, she held a whole speech, and there was a lot of media presence, and media presence was directed at her, but also at the border, where they saw, literally, the border wall is like the same what we have with Mexico, minus the black paint over it. And so they saw that something is going on there. So the media started paying attention. Now, of course, this is, a big, again, party pooper action for Putin, poo-poo, for Lukashenko, and for all that, right? Because that should not take attention away from the big summit in China, where they play those people who are now protecting the world and solving world peace and aiding China to become the biggest world power. So today, von der Leyen was traveling to Bulgaria. Again, visiting NATO forces, drawing attention to the area that can be potentially and very soon invaded by Russia. By Russia with the help of China and Iran and North Korea and all of this folks. So today, a plane carrying Ursula von der Leyen was targeted by GPS jamming while attempting to land in Bulgaria on Sunday, according to European Commission. Deputy Chief Spokesperson Ariana Podesta confirmed that Bulgarian authorities suspect the interference was carried out by Russia, describing it as a case of blatant interference. Despite the disruption, the aircraft landed safely. A source familiar with the incident told CNN that the pilots were forced to rely on paper maps to complete the landing. So, European Commission by now confirmed that this was Russia. Under any normal case scenario, this would have been an act of war. This is a president of European Commission whose plane was taken over by Russia, prohibiting her to land and to be safe. But all we produce is concerns. And so the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, who's known for poking European Union for their inaction and lack of decency towards their or self-respect, essentially, he sarcastically put this out. Deeply concerned to hear about the deeply concerning GPS interference that diverted von der Leyen's flight. Europe stands united in expression of deep concerns and must commit to the deployment of ever deepening concerns moving forward. And it is funny, but it is also true. I mention it every time here. We have drones crashing on NATO's land, essentially, right? Soil. We have MiG, right? Crashing in Romania last week. We have now literally interception of planes. Russians are flying over Alaska, 4 times just last week. Merz saying that Russian drones are flying over the route of the military aid going from Germany to Ukraine on a weekly basis. Tens of drones are flying over and documenting this journey. And still there is no real response. And I always bring as an example the response Turkey offered Russia when they went into their space over the Black Sea. Turkey said one warning, second time they shut the plane. So will there be a reaction? We'll see. Now, as to EU, it has to pass the 18th package of sanctions. They also want to green light the faster, acceptance for Ukraine into European Union, of course, once the war is over. But the problem there is Hungary, Slovakia. Slovakia's Prime Minister Fico is in China. And he's meeting with Xi Jinping and with Putin. And then he's going to meet with Zelensky on September 4th. Don't expect much. He's just going to bring the message of surrender, please. So nothing to expect there. But what European Union is doing is they're exploring ways to bypass Hungary's veto on decisions related to Ukraine, according to a report by Bloomberg. 12 EU countries are in discussion about shifting from unanimous voting to qualified majority voting system, which would allow decisions to be made more swiftly without relying on Hungary's position. So again, EU does everything by the book. Hopefully this will be fast. Okay, before I get into some quick news that are national news, let's check on here. Let me go up. Hey, Paul, when you play those clips, can I bother you to enable captions? Okay, will do. By the way, you can enable captions also on YouTube if you can. This is under, here's my face. Yes, there's like a CC. Can you tap on it? And let's see if it fixes. If not, I'll add it manually. Now, I think Germans could do to lose the 20th century. First thing American could do is to lose 21st. Yeah. Michael says Macron is having the hospitals prepare for warlike casualties. Yes. And this came out, and then essentially Paris did, the palace did confirm that this is happening. They're essentially preparing hospitals for spring 2026 to welcome from 50 to 180,000 people who potentially could be hurt, right? So they're preparing for casualties, which tells you a few things. Don't go that far to say France is going to send troops to Ukraine. Patience. But what France does is preparing on attack on EU, which could be. of course, Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, right? Which could be Poland. And so France would be stepping up, flying people to, to help them. So, and of course, if it's NATO, then, once one against all type of thing. So then France would be as involved as anybody else. So that's what they're preparing for. My question is, give Ukraine enough to kick those assholes off its soil. And then you won't need all of this. Provide Ukraine with enough help, because you don't do what you can do. You're not using Russian assets, the profits off of Russian assets. You're not providing Ukraine with enough. You're counting on Washington, D.C. to sell you something that they can virtually control, which led to Norway deciding against purchasing military aid from U.S. And I'll tell you about that later. So now, hi Bonnie, hello. The difference in Alaska historically is we actually purchased Alaska. Yes, but DDT is capable of anything, right? And KGB, yes. Putin doesn't care. I mean, they didn't even purchase Ukraine. Ukraine was never Russian, and historically speaking, Rus was in Ukraine, not in Russia. Golden Horde was in Russia. So, do they really care? I saw that too. I wonder if prudence or something more. Okay, you're talking. Yep. Global governance, absolutely. Tidy whitey. Paul says Alaskans are pretty red, and that unfortunately means yep. Okay. Tony says Putin acting like a spoiled toddler, pushing limits with glee. Yeah. It says captions unavailable. Okay, my bad. I'll get it fixed till tomorrow. Thank you for putting that out there. Thank you so much. Thank you for drawing my attention to it. So, some quick news. This is national news. So, despite U.S. appeals court ruling that most of President Trump's tariffs are illegal, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said that on Sunday that the administration is continuing talks with trading partners. Now, Trump announced in a tweet that he will issue an executive order mandating voter identification. Quote, voter ID must be part of every single vote, no exceptions. I will be doing an executive order to that end. Well, we'll see. We actually want to see him do that order and talk about that and sign it. I'm in. I'll watch it. So, 2 firefighters battling a wildfire in Washington state were detained by U.S. border agents and are now being held at an ICE detention center in Tacoma, a U.S. Congresswoman confirmed. Now, Chicago mayor said that their police will not collaborate with National Guard and the troops of federal agents or any federal agents if Trump follows through on threats to deploy them to the city. As to DOD renaming, the Trump administration is advancing plans to rename it to Department of War, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing a White House official. Now, U.S. Senator Sanders urged Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., to resign following the firing of senior public health official and the resignation of 4 others over candidates' anti-vaccine stance. Good, but won't happen. Now, a federal judge halted the Trump administration's policies to expand fast-track deportations, ruling they violate migrants' constitutional due process rights. And also another federal judge issued a restraining order Sunday, blocking the administration from deporting unaccompanied migrant children to Guatemala after lawyers argued the move would violate U.S. law. Okay. Quick news on the global sphere. Washington has suspended almost all visitor visas for Palestinian passport holders, U.S. official confirmed. So, of course, they want to prohibit the Palestinian delegation from coming to UN and being there, as France, Netherlands, UK, and other countries, and Canada will recognize Palestinian state or vote in favor of recognition it as a state, calling for that so-called two-state solution. But they're also, by canceling out all visas, they also prohibit Palestinians from literally saving their lives and coming to United States, even if they do have families here, even if they have, people who they know, just escaping, filing for asylum. Currently, not available. Now, the Houthis pledged revenge after Israeli strike in Yemen killed senior members of the group's government. Now, Israel announced it had killed the longtime Hamas armed wing spokesman. Hamas had not yet confirmed this. Now, as to, I'm going to have more about the Israel, but Mexican cartels are increasingly adopting modern warfare tools, including drones. Remember, Trump wanted to invade Mexico with drones to take care of cartels. Now, cartels actually flying drones to our border. Gave them an idea. Physicians in South Korea are heading back to work after 18-month walkout. And when it comes to Australia, they have far-right protests. They're all anti-immigration protests, and the current leadership and the government officials are debating what to do with that. As to International Labor Organization, they are assessing the impact of a proposed $107 million cut by the Trump administration. According to Reuters, Trump did not announce it personally, but his administration put that already in writing. Now, Washington has called on European allies to mirror U.S. sanctions on India, including halting oil and gas imports. Now, this is according to Axios. Why does this matter? Well, Trump is screwing U.S. consumers by tariffing anything and everything in terms of imports. But for Europe to do that, that would, again, think about it. I just told you. Who is benefiting from turbulence in Europe? Whether it is through invasion, war, trade war, economy issues, China. And so Trump provoking Europe to say, hey, fight Russia, right? Because India is purchasing from Russia, regardless that Europe purchases gas and oil from Russia, whatever. Target India, impose tariffs, which will what? Raise prices for European consumers. Europe will not do it because they know how tariffs work. And they remember Economy 101, tariffs are essentially your income tax on your consumers, so they won't do it. To which Trump will again use the Russia rhetoric that Europe is prolonging the war. They don't want to sanction India. They don't want to do anything to end the war. I'm doing the most. They do nothing. So the war may continue because Europe is playing along. Again, all aids to Russian narrative, but altogether, the winner is China in this regard. Now, President Ursula von der Leyen, she did finally arrive in Romania, and said that EU will fund Lithuania to monitor Russian trains on the way to Kaliningrad. And Kaliningrad is a piece of Russian land in between of Europe and with tiny connection, but to Russia. But it's the place where Russia stores nukes in big amounts, and so they are now monitoring the trains that are going through Lithuania to Kaliningrad, because what are they transporting? And also, the trains can also be part of any attack on Lithuania. So, as to Chancellor Merz, as I mentioned, he said, quote, if Ukraine surrenders, the war could end tomorrow, but then Putin will attack us the day after tomorrow. This is not an option. End quote. And that explains you what France is doing with the hospital beds. Now, no Putin-Zelensky-Trump summit. So Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov denied reports of a trilateral meeting between Putin, Zelensky, and Trump, to which he said nothing was agreed in Alaska. So whatever Trump was saying that in Alaska they agreed to this trilateral meeting was BS. And I do have a video, and I believe this video must have the subtitles, so take a look.
Нет. Пока то, что транслируется в прессе, это не совсем то, о чем мы договаривались. Там. Сейчас все говорят там о трехсторонней встрече, о встрече Путина с Зеленским, но конкретно это, насколько я знаю, между Путиным и Трампом об этом договоренности не было. Спасибо большое.
Now, Ukraine Special Operations destroyed S-300 radar system at Russia's Saki airbase in Crimea, while also drones hit the Krasnodar refinery, which is 1.1% of Russian output, and Syzran refinery, which is 3% of Russian oil output, and the Alexinsky chemical plant. So Ukraine was busy during this weekend. Now, as to Trump's Gaza plan, a post-war plan circulating in the Trump administration envisions the U.S. administering Gaza for at least a decade while they relocate the population and rebuild this whole area as a tourist and manufacturing hub. Manufacturing, it will be all functioning on cryptocurrency, Trump coin or whatever. Now, as to Israel, they use the intention by G7 to recognize Palestine as a state as a fake reason for them to take over Gaza or West Bank. Bullshit. They were already doing that, so now they found official reasons. So Israeli officials confirmed that annexation of parts of West Bank is under discussion as a possible response to France and others recognizing Palestinian state. A lot of bullshit. So, good news, Ukraine's general staff said that the latest Russian offensive ended in particularly nothing, with Russian forces failing to capture any major city in Ukraine. Now, they did amass reportedly 100,000 troops at the border, so we'll see what will happen with them. Most likely the same that what happened to the previous ones. We'll have a lot of bags traveling to Russia. Now, horrible thing happened in Afghanistan today. It was an earthquake, a 6.0 magnitude earthquake in eastern Afghanistan that has killed at least 610 people and injured more than 1,300. This was confirmed by Taliban officials on Monday today. According to U.S. Geological Survey, the quake struck about 20 kilometers from Jalalabad near the border with Pakistan late Sunday night. Now, the problem is that they cannot really rescue people who might be even alive. Why? Because U.S. cut aid. So U.S. funding have left dozens of clinics closed and even grounded a key medical helicopter, slowing relief efforts in the devastated region. And humanitarian officials warned that the response is being hampered by shrinking international aid. Now, in other news, Venezuela. So the U.S. has deployed 7 warships, a nuclear-powered submarine, and over 4,500 personnel in the southern Caribbean, fueling speculation about the true purpose of the mission. Now, the White House says they are targeting drug cartels. They aim to dismantle trafficking networks and foreign terrorist organizations. But here's the problem. That, in fact, most drug shipments pass through Pacific, not the Caribbean. So if you do open the map, you will realize that this is bogus. Now, 4,500 troops is too little to take over Venezuela, too big to do something with cartels, especially nuclear. Like, what are you doing? Again, if you want to know my opinion is that it is in Peter Thiel's specifically interest to have the martial law. And either this will be Trump declaring it, or worse for them, Vance declaring it, because Vance lacks personality, authority, charisma, anything to sell it to their public. They need a couple of tools in their toolbox to use it for martial law. So this could be, again, was Trump continuing to lie about the criminals taking over the cities. They can also do some, a la like the sort of like a false flag operation, but do something like where our army is targeted by civilians, there's some debacle, whatever, in the city, or as they go to Illinois and, Chicago will fight back, or New York, or whatever. But if all that fails and that cannot be sold to the MAGA public, they can also use Venezuela as something to start deployment and start, invading it and use that for martial law. That's how I see it. This is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to even think this is half as smart, but that's where I can align it to, because it really makes no sense. Now, Maduro, though, yes, he is very connected to Russia. Yes, in order to remain in power in 2019, he literally paid Putin with his own gold reserve to have the aid of Wagner Group. Remember the mercenaries? They came in and slaughtered people who were protesting against Maduro, and he remained in power. So the gold is also maintained in St. Petersburg now, whatever that maintenance is and the scope of it, but very much connected to Russia. Given that, I doubt that Trump was going to go to Venezuela, but it could be a scenario that could justify, in their eyes or views, something. Now, let me know what you think about it. This is just where I align it to. All about the oil, Jared says. Yeah, truth. I just couldn't hear the meetings and all around. See, yes. Okay. Yeah, it was very hard to hear, but I kind of did summarize it. And also, I already sent you the today's news briefing. No paywall, nothing. Just click it and read it and subscribe. You're going to get it per email Monday through Friday. So there I have the exact quotes. So if you, have some questions, please go and read it. It's also in more detail there. Now, as to Norway, Norway has now chosen the UK as its partner for new acquisition of new anti-submarine, ships in a deal worth of 10 billion pounds, which is $13.5 billion. Now, the country's largest ever military investment. Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre emphasized the importance of this in defending Norway's sovereignty and monitoring Russian submarines in the Arctic. So essentially, the deal follows competitive bid process, which also included US as a consideration, and they decided against it. Main reason for that was that US virtually can control the range of whatever they sell to Ukraine or whatever gets delivered to Ukraine, as I mentioned last week. And they said we cannot go, we share a border with Russia. We have no space physically and figuratively to F around and find out with Russia. So we can't do this. We can't deal with US just for this reason. So we're going to pay UK. This will create 4,000 jobs in the UK, including 2,000 in Scotland. So final contract negotiations are now underway. So S2, is Paul leaving us? After Jet, good night. Okay, good. Thank you. Read this part in the briefing if you can, because this is a doozy. So, but please be safe and have a wonderful evening. Now, as to Russia, September 1st, everybody goes to school. They posted so many videos of Ukrainian children dressed in Russian flag colors and waving Russian flags, singing Russian songs. All this shit was everywhere. But altogether, Russians woke up today to a new set of rules, which is very much resembling an iron curtain that is about to close. So here's what Russian life is like starting today. Searching for extremist materials now carries fines of up to 5,000 rubles. Extremist materials could be anything Ukraine related, anything Western world related, any movie that is American or European, maybe a recipe of borscht or a recipe of, I don't know, fries, if you need a recipe for it. That could be extremist. So anything is possible to be seen as extremist. Now, transferring SIM cards in the phone or accounts is now banned, with fines reaching 200,000 rubles. Purchases must be video recorded. As to VPN crackdown, advertising VPNs on blocked social networks, which is Meta networks and Twitter and Blue Sky and all of it, and WhatsApp, is prohibited with penalties of up to 500,000 rubles. Now, new smartphones must include the new state-run Max Messenger and the domestic App Store. And it's very interesting because in New York subway, I see this commercial. It's something with the cloud. I'll take a picture of it and I'll post it on Blue Sky next time I see it. And it's like download our service. So essentially, it gives you like free cell phone service and internet, but you have to enable your location monitoring. There's sort of like a state-run. Careful of that. Now, banks gain authority to freeze accounts in Russia without court orders. Tighter driving requirements. Now, lighters and gas cylinders can only be purchased with the ID. Tighter driving requirements as to you can't drive at a certain time and certain place. You have to have a reason for driving certain roads and whatnot. Also, English classes are reduced in schools. Technical college graduates barred from universities without passing the Unified State exam, which is a pro-Russian propaganda exam. Films with so-called non-traditional values, including cartoons, will be denied distribution permits. Together, the measures mark another step in Russia's return to heavy-handed authoritarianism, echoing the creak of new Iron Curtain. And now I have two things to mention. Last is the parade in China. Who's going to be there? So just give me a minute. But this is a funny thing. So Russia dragged out the disgraced former Russian president Yanukovych. Remember the one that created everything golden and then ran away? Pro-Russian Yanukovych. He got a new set of teeth, and here's a visual. He speaks obviously Russian, so I'm not going to let you listen to it. I have what he says, but here's a visual.
Да, Владимир Владимирович совершенно прав.
So, in a rare media appearance, ousted former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych addressed Russian journalists, repeating Kremlin talking points on the war. Yanukovych claimed that his presidency pursued EU membership, but not NATO, accusing European partners of acting improperly. He backed Putin's argument that Western efforts to draw Ukraine into NATO provoked the invasion, calling NATO integration a road to nowhere and a path to civil war. Again, echoing Kremlin and resembling whatever Trump tweets. Now, lastly, the high-stakes Beijing parade. This will be on, do I have a picture of this mess? No, but I put it essentially in the article and in the news briefing. So this will put whatever Trump's birthday bash was to shame, because, I mean, they're preparing for this. That's the regime, right? The real authoritarian regime in China. So September 3rd, Beijing will host major parade marking China's Victory Day, which serve as a platform for a series of meetings between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and others. So with Putin, he's going to have a private tea meeting. Then he's going to have also trilateral conversation with Putin, Xi, and President of Mongolia. So all of that will have a lot of, efforts to portraying superpower and whatnot, and others recognizing China as superpower. So military display will feature 10,000 Chinese troops, hundreds of pieces of military hardware, and the presentation of the new weapons system, including hypersonic missiles and advanced stealth bombers. For China, the parade represents a symbol of national strength and unity, reinforcing its commitment to peace and defense. Official rhetoric frames the event as a message that China is prepared to defend the post-World War II international order, exactly what we discussed in the beginning of this, and stand firm on international justice. Interesting statement, since they are sponsoring Russia killing Ukrainian children and civilians. So what justice? Now, the parade has sparked significant international debates of Western leaders. The G7 will not be attending, citing concerns over Russia's involvement and potential anti-Japanese undertones. Because this Victory Day, I don't know why I'm itching everywhere, but the Victory Day is over Japan. That's what they're celebrating. And now, in fact, Japan too has urged other countries not to participate, pointing to concerns over the event's perceived anti-Japanese orientation. To which now Beijing, in response, has accused Japan of failing to distance itself from militarism and urged the country to make clear choice on its historical stance. Essentially saying, look, Germans are okay with Putin holding parades in Moscow because they know they're not fascist anymore. So they distance themselves from their historical path. Why do you align with your ancestors? Taiwan has also been invited to attend, though it remains uncertain who from the island will represent, and even if, and given its ongoing disputes with Beijing over historical narratives concerning China's World War II resistance. And now, as to who's going to be there, 26 heads of state. I'm just going to read the countries, shall we? Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia. This is former USSR. Now, European leaders, Serbia and Slovakia. Asian leaders, North Korea, Indonesia, Mongolia, Laos, Maldives, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Pakistan, Nepal, and Myanmar. Iran will be there representing the Middle East, Cuba representing Latin America, and African leaders from Republic of Congo and Zimbabwe. Now, as to media, of course, Chinese media is praising this. Of course, now Western media, The Economist, Reuters are saying that this is just a portrayal of some type of, superpower. That is not really true, right? If you think about Chinese economy, how it got affected negatively through COVID, how it was tied into their real estate market, how that crashed. So it's not as rosy as they perform as, but it serves the purpose for now. And as to today in history, real quick, today the World War II began with Germany invading Poland in 1939, marking the start of World War II. Britain and France declared the war 2 days later. And in, marking this day, now the new president of Poland, Nawrocki, who's far right, demanded Germany to pay reparations. This guy has the worst timing. Like, he's asking Ukraine to dig up graves from 80 years ago before he will allow Ukraine to join European Union or even be considered. He's asking Germany for reparations after Poland for a decade receives money from European Union, whatever. Also, 1969, Gaddafi came to power. He seized the power in bloodless coup, overthrowing King Idris. He then ruled for 40 years. After that, we know what happened to him. 1983, Korean Air Flight 007. A Soviet fighter jet shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007. All 269 people died. In 2021, U.S. ended the Afghanistan war. We know in what way, but essentially this ended the 20-year war. And that's it. That's it for today. I know it's not as rosy. I know it's not as happy or whatever. I'm like, delivery of bad news. But let's take it with a grain of salt. I always say, you always have to do what's right for you, and to pull a plug, literally, on the news and content that doesn't add you to your well-being. One thing is to be informed. Another thing is to be paralyzed. Don't get paralyzed. It's a long game. A lot can change. See it for what it is, right? Yes, we do have power to decide. In other manner, we don't. One cute video I wanted to show you is from Ukrainian front lines, but they have cats there, right? So you see a lot of videos and photos of cats, being with the soldiers. And so they built this checkpoint for the kitties at the front lines. I know it's front lines, but still, it's very cute. Take a look.
Решает. Они по металлу? А вон круто. Мне же. Так это есть.
I know it's a long video, but it's so cute. They have a checkpoint. Guys, I was reading your comments. Thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much. You truly, made my day tidy whitey. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Making sense. Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate that it was useful. Hypersonic missiles are scary as fuck. Yeah. Look forward to never hearing names. Oh, believe me. Believe me, you. How long has been Putin ruler? I think 20 years, over 20 years, right? At this point, I remember Putin came to power when I was tiny. So, you know how many people grew up with Putin being the leader in Russia, not knowing anybody else? Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, with the kitties. Tony, yes. Thank you so much, guys. Please keep your head on a swivel. Have a peaceful night. Don't bother about Trump picture and this and that. We'll know soon. There is no way to hide or whatever. We will know soon, and then we will know what's up next, right? Bonnie, thank you. Thank you so much for cat video. Yes. And I remember so everything in moderation, including news, because a lot of bullshit is coming our way. Prepare tomorrow to hear how fantastic the leader is, and he's maybe participating in Dancing with the Stars next. That's some other bullshit. Just, take it with a grain of salt. When we see him seated and talking the way he always does, okay, we're rolling, with whatever it has been before. If not, we'll see what next. So just, it's a marathon. Make sure that whenever everything is over, whenever we get to a better point, that you also feel good enough to enjoy it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Labor Day or night, and good start of the week. It's a short week, but stay safe and stay sane. I see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, per usual. All right. Have a good night.